Ladies and gentlemen, there comes a time in every soul's journey where you must ask, am I alive or am I simply following instructions? If you obey all the rules, you will miss the fun. And not just the fun, the freedom, the flavor, the fire of being fully, wildly, unapologetically you. Now, I'm not talking about chaos for chaos' sake. I'm talking about the kind of rebellion that saves lives. The rebellion of self-love, the defiance of joy, the holy refusal to be small just because it makes others comfortable. There are rules written in ink, and there are rules written in silence. The ink says, don't speak too loudly. The silence says, don't shine too brightly. But you weren't born to whisper through life. You were born with thunder in your chest. You were born with poetry in your walk and purpose in your laughter. You were born to disturb the dust, not blend into it. Rules may keep the road smooth, but it's the detours that hold the magic. Rules may teach you how to sit still, but it's the dance that teaches you how to feel. And oh, how this world needs people who feel. The danger is not in breaking the rules. The danger is in breaking yourself to fit them. The danger is waking up at 70 with your dreams embalmed in a what-if, and I should've. The danger is looking back on your days and realizing you lived every single one of them trying to impress a jury that never existed. You see, obedience can be a form of fear dressed up as politeness. But fun, real, soul-shaking, heart-freeing fun is the evidence of a life lived from the inside out. Fun doesn't ask permission. Fun doesn't check the manual. Fun leads, and the world follows. So stop asking how loud you're allowed to laugh. Stop wondering if your truth is too much for the room. Stop tiptoeing through your own destiny. Stand up, speak up, and if the rule book doesn't have a page for who you are, write your own. Because this life is not a tightrope. It is not a checklist. It is not a box with sides and labels. It is a wild, spinning, divine invitation to experience, to explore, to expand. So yes, know the rules, understand them, and then, when your heart calls, break them with grace, break them with purpose, break them for the sake of joy, love, art, truth, and legacy. Because if you obey all the rules, you may never break anything, but you will never build anything either. Not the kind of life that matters, not the kind of life that sings, not the kind of life that lives. Rules build roads, but spirit builds journeys. That's the truth many people forget in the rush to live right, to live safe, to live according to the manual handed to them by the world. Rules are necessary, yes. They help us navigate, avoid chaos, understand direction. They pave the roads, lay the signs, set the limits. But they cannot create the journey. They cannot breathe purpose into the steps you take. They cannot replace the inner voice that whispers what's more. A road without spirit is just concrete. A life lived only by rules is just repetition. There's no music in it, no wonder, no discovery. You wake up, you follow instructions, you play it safe, and one day you wonder where your fire went. You wonder why, even with everything aright, you feel empty. That's because roads were meant to guide you, not define you. They were never supposed to own your feet, your will, your dreams. Roads are tools. Spirit is the engine. You can drive on a road your whole life and never go anywhere that matters. But when spirit rises, when you let your soul take the wheel, everything changes. Suddenly, you don't just want to move. You want to explore. You want to touch the unknown, press against the edges, find out what happens when you say yes to something that wasn't in the plan. That's where the journey begins. Think about the great souls who made a mark on this world. They didn't just walk down the road society built for them. They created new paths. They turned left when the sign said to stay right. They asked questions that rules tried to silence. They painted where they weren't supposed to paint. They danced in spaces that demanded they sit still. Because they knew that something greater than order was calling them, something only their spirit could answer. You are not a machine. You are not meant to run a loop. You are not here to live a copy of someone else's day. You are a living, breathing force of nature with a voice that trembles with truth and a heart that aches for something more than routine. That ache you feel when you're doing everything aright, but still feel restless. That's your spirit knocking. That's your journey begging to begin. And don't be fooled. Spirit isn't chaos. It's not recklessness. It's not about throwing away structure for the sake of rebellion. It's about knowing when to listen deeper, when to say, thank you, road, but I'm going to climb this hill instead. It's about finding the courage to honor what you feel, even when it doesn't match what you're told. It's about making peace with the idea that your path might look different, sound different, move different, and that's exactly how it should be. There's nothing noble about a life that checks every box but never lights up the sky. There's nothing fulfilling about staying in the lane if it's not leading you to meaning. We've been taught to believe that if we just obey, we'll be okay. But there's a difference between being okay and being alive. There's a difference between surviving and soaring. And here's the beautiful truth. You were born with a spirit that remembers freedom. Even when you've been trained to follow, to submit, to shrink, that spirit still remembers what it feels like to run. It remembers the joy of spontaneity, the thrill of saying yes to the unknown, the sacred satisfaction of being your full, untamed self. That spirit knows the difference between moving and growing. So yes, use the roads. Learn what they offer. Respect the structure where it serves you. But never let the road convince you that it is the destination. Never let the rules silence your intuition. Never let the map replace the magic of mystery. Because the greatest stories were never written by those who only followed signs. They were written by the ones who followed their spirit into the forest, into the storm, into the beauty of becoming more than what they were told they could be. Rules build roads, but it is spirit, your fire, your passion, your truth that builds journeys. The road will get you somewhere, but your spirit, that will get you home. Rebellion births discovery. That's not just a clever phrase. It's a fundamental truth written across the face of every breakthrough, every invention, every revolution of the heart and mind. Rebellion is not merely about defying authority for the sake of defiance. It's about the sacred refusal to stay silent when your soul demands to speak. It's about recognizing when the world's script doesn't fit your story and finding the courage to write your own. Discovery does not come to the obedient. It does not arrive to those who wait patiently for permission. It comes to those who are willing to risk the comfort of what's known for the possibility of something greater. And the first step toward that greater is rebellion, a bold decision to look at what is and say, and that's not enough. Rebellion lives in the heart of every great dreamer. It's the fire in the belly that says, why not? When the world insists you can't. It's the moment a young girl is told to be quiet, and instead she raises her voice. It's the instant a man looks at the life he's been told to live and dares to want more. Rebellion is the seed and discovery is the bloom. Without the first, the second cannot exist. People speak of rebels as threats. Truth, rebels are the architects of transformation. They are the ones who see beyond the fence and wonder what lies in the field beyond. And not only do they wonder, they go. They cross the line, they ask the questions others are afraid to utter, and in doing so, they uncover new ways of seeing, of thinking, of being. Rebellion is not always loud. Sometimes it's a quiet resistance. A gentle, persistent insistence that life must be more than rules, more than expectations, more than fitting in. It's the artist who paints with their pain when the world demands perfection. It's the student who challenges the textbook. It's the mother who raises her children not to obey without question, but to question with love. And yes, rebellion comes at a cost. You will be misunderstood. You will be labeled difficult, dangerous, dramatic. You may lose approval, comfort, security, but what you gain is far more precious. You gain clarity, you gain direction, you gain the raw, unfiltered experience of discovering who you are and what you're truly here to do. Discovery requires risk. To find something new, you must be willing to leave the old. You must be willing to wander, to fail, to stumble into darkness before you touch the light. And rebellion is the permission you give yourself to take that first step. It's the declaration that your life will not be a repetition of someone else's choices. It will be your own creation. When you rebel not against people, but against limitation, you give yourself the gift of expansion. You begin to see beyond the walls that once kept you confined. You start asking real questions. What do I believe? What do I want? What makes me come alive? And every honest answer brings you closer to your truth. Rebellion is the beginning of wisdom. It's the spark that lights the path of self-awareness. You cannot truly know yourself while obeying everything you've been told. You cannot discover your strength until you challenge the forces that seek to keep you small. Discovery demands that you break away, that you walk into the wilderness of the unfamiliar, that you let go of safety long enough to find freedom. This world has been moved forward not by those who conformed, but by those who dared to imagine more. Every major leap in science, in art, in justice, in spirit, every one of them began with a rebel, someone who looked at what was accepted and said, I see a better way. So do not fear rebellion. Do not shrink from it. Honor it. Listen to it. Let it lead you toward the unknown, where the real treasures wait. Not the ones handed to you, but the ones you dig out with your own bare hands. The ones that reflect not the world's image of who you should be, but the truest image of who you already are. Because in the end, rebellion is not destruction. It's creation. It's not chaos. It's birth. First cry of a life that refuses to be lived by someone else's rules. And in that cry, discovery is born, not just of the world, but of yourself, of your capacity, of your depth, of your power. Rebellion births discovery. Every time. Fear hides behind obedience. It dresses itself in manners and politeness and conformity. It smiles when it is supposed to. It nods even when it disagrees. It says yes when every fiber of the soul is begging for a no. It wears the mask of agreement to avoid the discomfort of conflict. And for a while it feels safe. It feels accepted. But deep inside, that kind of obedience is not peace. There's silence soaked in fear. We are taught from an early age to obey. Sit still. Speak only when spoken to. Do as you're told. Don't ask why. Follow the rules and you'll be rewarded. Follow the crowd and you'll belong. It sounds noble. It sounds harmless. But beneath that surface is a quiet training in fear. Fear of punishment. Fear of rejection. Fear of failure. Fear of being different. So we obey not because we believe, but because we are afraid to question. And the longer we live like that, the easier it becomes to confuse obedience with virtue. To believe that following the rules is always right, that silence is strength, that blending in is wisdom. But there is a cost to that kind of obedience. The cost is authenticity. The cost is the life you might have lived if you had only listened to your own voice. Fear doesn't always shout. Sometimes it whispers, don't rock the boat, a don't stand out, a don't disappoint anyone. And so you shrink, you obey, you do what is expected of you. And on the outside, everything looks fine. You're praised, you're liked, you fit in. But inside, your spirit is folding in on itself. Your dreams are gathering dust. Your truth is growing heavy in your chest, unspoken and unheard. True obedience, the kind that comes from understanding and inner alignment, is different. That kind of obedience is powerful. It's chosen, not forced. It's informed, not blind. But fear-based obedience is a prison. Even if the bars are invisible, it keeps you small in the name of being good. It keeps you quiet in the name of being accepted. It keeps you still in the name of being proper. But who decides what is proper? Who sets the rules that silence your truth? Often those rules were written not to protect you, but to control you, to keep systems running smoothly, to keep power in place, to keep change at bay. And the most effective way to keep someone from challenging those rules is to make them afraid of losing love, afraid of standing alone, afraid of being wrong. So fear hides behind obedience like a shadow. It disguises itself as duty, as respect, as discipline. And yet, its true motive is to keep you from living fully, to keep you from asking, from exploring, from expressing what is real for you. It is not disobedient to question. It is not wrong to say, this rule does not serve me. Growth begins where blind obedience ends. Your soul was not meant to live in submission to fear. It was meant to rise. It was meant to explore the vastness of your potential. And that journey cannot happen while you're chained to the need to always do what others say is right. It takes courage to look at your life and ask, am I living this way because I believe in it? Or because I'm afraid not to? That's a hard question. It unearths years of conditioning. It challenges the stories you've told yourself to survive. Because when you realize that fear has been steering your choices, you can finally take the wheel back. Fear will always try to justify its presence. It will say you're being wise, responsible, loyal. But underneath it all is the trembling heart of someone who's afraid to be seen. And the moment you see that, you can start to choose differently. You can obey your inner truth instead of outer pressure. You can listen to your gut instead of your fear. You can be respectful without being silent. You can be strong without being still. Life asks us not just to follow, but to think. Though you'll not just to accept, but to feel. Not just to exist, but to become. And becoming requires bravery. The bravery to say no. The bravery to break patterns. The bravery to speak when silence is more comfortable. That kind of bravery dismantles fear. It exposes it. It reminds you that you are not here to be afraid. You are here to be free. Fear hides behind obedience, but your truth is louder. Your purpose is stronger. And when you choose to obey your own voice over your fear, that is where your real life begins. Fun isn't reckless, it's real. That simple truth is often misunderstood in a world that worships productivity and wears seriousness like a badge of honor. Fun has been mislabeled as a distraction, a luxury, or worse, a form of immaturity. But in reality, fun is not a detour from life's meaning, it is a direct pathway to it. Fun is where the spirit breathes. It is where the walls fall down and the soul steps forward. It is not the opposite of responsibility. It is the expression of aliveness, of presence, of truth. To be fully alive is to know joy. And to know joy, you must allow yourself to feel fun without guilt, without shame, without having to earn it. There is something profoundly real about the way a person laughs without apology, the way they dance when no one is watching, or when everyone is. The way they chase what makes their heart race, not because it's practical, but because it's beautiful, because it matters. People say fun is childish. That's a lie built on fear. Fun is not childish, it's human. It is the spark that reminds you that life is not just a task to complete. It's an experience to be felt. When you suppress fun, you are not becoming more mature. You are becoming more mechanical. You are dimming a light that was meant to shine. The tragedy is not that people grow old, it's that they forget how to feel joy. They trade wonder for routine, play for pressure, and slowly they forget what it means to be fully, truly themselves. Fun isn't reckless. Recklessness ignores the consequences, but fun embraces the moment. Fun invites you into the now. It asks nothing from you except your presence. It doesn't need permission and it doesn't seek perfection. It exists for the sake of being. That is its magic and its power. It doesn't perform. It doesn't prove. It simply is. And what could be more real than that? We have been taught to believe that fun comes second, that it can only happen after the work is done, after the bills are paid, after the house is clean, after the schedule is complete. But that way of thinking robs life of its flavor. What is the point of all that doing if you never allow yourself to simply be? Fun is not the reward for a life well lived. It is part of what makes life worth living in the first place. Wow. In the heart of every person, there is a memory of what fun felt like before the world told them to calm down, sit still, be serious. There is a version of you that knew how to play without asking if it was allowed. A version that ran, laughed, explored, and created, not because it was useful, but because it was joyful. That version is still alive, buried maybe, forgotten perhaps, but not gone. To reconnect with fun is to reconnect with yourself. It is to remember that your soul needs more than order and control. It needs surprise. It needs lightness. It needs pleasure. You are not a machine built only to produce. You are a living, breathing being meant to feel the rush of doing something just because it feels good. Something that lifts your spirit without explaining itself. And make no mistake, fun is healing. It breaks tension. It rebuilds connection. It softens edges hardened by stress, responsibility, and grief. It brings you back to the heart of things. In fun, we rediscover each other. In fun, we remember our shared humanity. A genuine laugh can mend more than a well-crafted apology. A shared moment of joy can speak louder than any sermon or speech. Fun does not require you to be perfect. It does not require you to be productive. It only requires that you show up honestly, fully, willingly. And when you do, you will find that life opens in ways it never did before. Doors appear where there were only walls. Paths unfold that you could not have planned. Fun does not distract from the sacred. It reveals it. So don't dismiss fun. Don't underestimate it. Don't push it to the end of your list. Make room for it now, today, in this breath. It is not reckless. It is not irresponsible. It is real. It is a signal that you are here, awake, and still capable of feeling joy in a world that often forgets how. Because when you choose fun, you choose freedom, you choose truth. You choose the parts of yourself that refuse to die quietly. And that choice is the most real thing of all. Conformity is the cage of the created. Not because rules are always bad or structure is always limiting, but because the very essence of creativity is to reach beyond what already exists. Creativity does not ask, well, what are we allowed to do? It asks, oh, what could be? It does not settle for what has always been done. It dares to imagine what has never been tried. And in that sacred space of wonder, conformity becomes the enemy, not through violence, but through quiet suffocation. Conformity whispers, a stay in line. It offers safety, predictability, and the comfort of the crowd. But the creative soul does not thrive in safety alone. It needs air. It needs risk. It needs the freedom to fail spectacularly and try again with joy. When creativity is caged by the need to belong, to fit in, to do what is expected, it loses its wings. It begins to mimic instead of make. It begins to repeat instead of reinvent. And that's not living. That's existing on autopilot. The creative mind is wild. It doesn't move in straight lines. It meanders. It stumbles. It dances. It explodes. It is messy, unpredictable, and full of contradictions. Conformity hates that. Conformity demands neatness. It demands obedience. It wants you to color inside the lines, to follow the blueprint, to stay within the mold that has already been approved. But no masterpiece was ever born from a mold. No poem that stirred the soul came from a checklist. Conformity tells you that you need to prove yourself. that you must dress a certain way, speak a certain way, think a certain way, think a certain way if you want to be taken seriously. And so, without even realizing it, many creative people shrink. They edit themselves before the world even gets a chance. They silence their boldest ideas because they don't sound like what's already out there. They dull their colors to blend in with the gray. And slowly their inner fire begins to dim, not because they weren't gifted, but because they believed they weren't allowed. Creativity is not just about making art. It is about how you see, how you love, how you live. It is the force that turns a meal into a memory, a conversation into a song, a problem into a possibility. It is your divine fingerprint on the world. But when conformity takes over, that fingerprint fades. You begin to live by someone else's design. You begin to prioritize acceptance over authenticity. And that's when the cage closes quietly, politely, permanently. The most dangerous thing about conformity is not how loud it is, but how quiet. It doesn't force itself. It waits. It smiles. It rewards you for being agreeable. It claps for you when you repeat what's already been said. And you don't even realize you've traded your voice for applause until the echo stops feeling like home. That's when the silence grows heavy. That's when your soul begins to ache, not for more approval, but for more truth. To create is to risk. It is to step outside the known and say, here is something new, something honest, something of me. That takes courage. That takes disobedience. That takes a refusal to let the world's opinions shrink your vision. The creative spirit must be allowed to stretch, to fly, to fall flat on its face and laugh at the landing. It must be free to question, to rebel, to push boundaries not out of disrespect, but out of deep, unshakable love for what could be. When you conform, you protect yourself from criticism, but you also shield yourself from greatness. The very thing that makes your work beautiful, your uniqueness, is what conformity tells you to hide. But don't. Do not cover the very thing the world is hungry for. Do not shrink to fit a space that was never built for your light. The world doesn't need more copies. It needs more courage. More voices that tremble but speak anyway. More hands that shake but still build. If you are creative, and you are, whether you paint or parent or dream, then you must guard that gift with everything you have. Don't hand it over to the approval of the masses. Don't dim it just to be accepted. The cage may be gold, but it is still a cage, and you were not born to be tame. Conformity is easy, but creativity is freedom. And freedom, though costly, is the birthplace of all that is brilliant, brave, and breathtaking. So break the mold, break the rules, break the silence, and create something so true, so wild, so you that no cage could ever hold it. Your life is not a rule book, it's a rhythm. You can choose to trust the unfolding of your life, even when it doesn't look like anyone else's, because your life is not a rule book, it's a rhythm. And when you stop marching and start moving, when you stop following and start feeling, you come home to yourself. You become the music. You become the movement. And that, right there, is where your freedom lives. Let us remember this. Life was never meant to be a silent agreement with rules written by those who feared the fire of the human spirit. It was meant to be lived boldly, danced wildly, laughed loudly, and questioned freely. If you obey all the rules, you may never fall, but you will never fly. You may never fail, but you will never feel. Rules may keep you safe, but spirit makes you alive. And you were not created to simply survive in the shadow of obedience. You were born to rise, to rebel with purpose, to find your rhythm, to seek your truth, and to create a life that sings your name back to you. So break free, gracefully, fiercely, truthfully. Step out of the lines they drew for you and into the wide, wild beauty of your own becoming. Laugh in the face of limitations. Dance where silence was expected. Speak where silence was demanded. The world may not understand it, but your soul will. And that is the only approval you will ever need. Because in the end, the most unforgettable lives are not the ones that followed the rules, they're the ones that rewrote them.